Under the cold gaze of a full moon, the forest was alive with the sound of clashing steel. Hajin Cheon stood alone, surrounded by bodies, his sword dripping with blood. He faced the group of assassins closing in on him, his expression calm but fierce. "No point wasting time fighting one at a time," he said. "You might as well all come at once." His name, Hajin Cheon, carried weight. A top assassin of the Divine Justice Alliance, his very presence commanded both fear and awe. The circle of enemies tightened. One among them scoffed at Hajin, warning him not to let a few kills get to his head. The men rushed in. One yelled something about Hajin getting what he asked for, but their confidence quickly turned into regret. Hajin's blade moved in deadly arcs, cutting through bodies with chilling ease. He had long stopped keeping track of the men he killed just to make it this far. Each swing of his sword pushed him closer to the freedom he had chased for decades. No mercy, no hesitation. He wasn't here to spare lives, he was breaking his chains. "Is this all you've got? You came here to die, and I'm here to help you with that." His enemies shouted to stand firm, reminding each other that Hajin was alone. But it didn't matter. He was far more than one man. He was a legend, unstoppable and unrelenting. After cutting down another wave, Hajin asked, "Anyone else want to die?" His voice was steady, his blade unwavering. 30 years of obedience, killing at someone else's command, were ending tonight. He had endured enough. With a roar of defiance, he lunged toward the group, shouting, "This ends now!" His voice was hoarse but strong, every word backed by blood and fury. If freedom meant destroying every last one of them, so be it. The men screamed as his blade tore through them, but more appeared, trying to surround him. "This is our shot! Don't let him escape!" one of them shouted. But Hajin didn't run. He vanished from their line of sight and reappeared above them, silent and lethal. His stance was like a predator ready to strike. He launched himself down with terrifying speed, scattering the assassins like leaves. Their fear turned to dread. They finally understood. They were fighting not just one of the 10 great masters, but the best among them. The one people whispered about in fear, the Assassin King. The moment his feet touched the ground, more bodies dropped. He exhaled heavily and looked around. The area had gone quiet. Is it finally over? He wondered. But then more pursuers arrived. They called out, urging one another to press the attack. They saw his exhaustion, the blood loss, the wear in his stance. There's no end to them. Hajin thought grimly, lifting his dulled sword once more. My blade is chipped, my breath short. Yet they keep coming. Determination lit his tired eyes. Do they hate my freedom that much? Sensing the shift in his aura, the new arrivals hesitated. His killing intent was suffocating. "You'd better back off," Hajin warned, "or I'll cut you down like the rest." He charged again, and screams filled the air as steel met flesh. In the chaos, a voice from his past returned, one that cut deeper than wounds. "You've earned praise as the top assassin, Hajin, but that's all you'll ever be. A loyal beast of the Divine Justice Alliance. Just a killer on a leash. You'll never be more than that. Not in life, not in death." Hajin gasped for breath, the pain from an arrow embedded in his abdomen flaring as he tore it free. Blood poured, his vision blurred. "I have to survive," he thought. "I've lived my whole life as their weapon, but I won't die as one." His face bore the marks of age and battle, a map of the wars he'd fought. He braced himself. "Come on, stay focused," he whispered, dragging his sword and his weary body forward. Almost there, just a little further. A safe house wasn't far. If he could reach it, he could patch his wounds, drink an elixir, and recover. Then, freedom. His legs finally gave out. He dropped to the ground, panting. "At this rate, I'll starve to death," he groaned. "A week of surviving on scraps, I could really go for dumplings right now." Suddenly the air shifted. A shadow leapt from above, striking where Hajin had fallen. He dodged instinctively. How did I not sense that? He wondered. Of all people? The attacker moved with elegance and brutality, slicing trees like paper. Hajin observed him silently. He's powerful, too powerful for a random pursuer. He recognized the technique. That's the sovereign death style. Only a handful can wield it. Hajin concluded this was a top assassin from the central southern region. Then it hit him. The Divine Justice Alliance sent in the Iron Blood Fort's elite, the 8 Iron Regiments. They must really want me dead. Blood still dripping from his side, Hajin clenched his sword. "Even after all I've been through, you think I can't end you?" he asked. "Go ahead, try me." The assassin across from him flinched. Hajin's words carried unshakable conviction. They clashed, sword against sword, power against power. But Hajin's blade found its mark. The enemy stumbled, blood trailing from his mouth, and collapsed. Hajin stood tall, victorious again. His breathing slowed. Then he turned toward the trees. "If you're done lurking in the shadows," he said, "come out." From the darkness, a figure emerged. Hajin's eyes widened. "You," he said, surprised. "The queen of soaring beauty." She smiled. "I'm honored you still remember me, Hajin. It's been 6 years, hasn't it? Meanwhile, elsewhere in the forest, A group of riders approached the battlefield. An old man on horseback led the way, flanked by subordinates. One dismounted and examined the bodies. These men, they were all from the Iron Blood Fort. The rider nodded solemnly. His name was Il-Jeong, an elder of the Divine Justice Alliance. He looked over the carnage left behind by Hajin and murmured, "He broke through our net and eliminated this many elites. Hajin, you truly live up to your title." He raised a hand, and his men bowed. "Track the Queen's energy," he ordered. "That's where we'll find him." Back in the forest, under the pale light of the moon, Hajin Cheon stood face to face with the woman now in front of him. Her presence was as dangerous as it was graceful. The body of the fallen assassin lay at his feet, but Hajin's attention was focused entirely on her. He muttered her infamous title, the Queen of Soaring Beauty, his face tightening with unease. This woman, known to few by her real name Sogyo Guak, had the appearance of a woman in her prime thanks to a technique that disguised her true age. In truth, she was past 60, but behind her seemingly gentle appearance was a ruthless killer. Rumors claimed she couldn't find peace unless she took a life before each nightfall. Hajin clenched his teeth. So the Iron Blood Fort wasn't satisfied with sending sovereign death? They even roped in her? They're desperate to bring me down. He let out a frustrated breath, muttering angrily under his breath. Yet despite everything, he still had one last move left. Sogyo tilted her head slightly, her tone mocking. "How disappointing," she said, her voice like silk. "After everything, is this how you treat an old companion?" Hajin scoffed. "Don't flatter yourself," he snapped. "We were never friends." She didn't drop the act. "There's no reason to be so harsh," she said with a smile. "You barely look like you can stand." She suggested he surrender, but Hajin stood firm. "Don't be so sure of yourself," he said as he steadied his footing. "You won't know what I'm capable of until we fight." He readied his stance, cold defiance in his voice. He called her out, saying she talked big for someone who hadn't lifted a weapon yet. The jab hit its mark. Her composure cracked as she threatened to rip him apart if he insulted her again. Feigning fear, Hajin taunted her. "Touched a nerve, have I? You seem a lot more worried about your age now than the last time we met." Her mask of elegance fell briefly, and rage flashed across her face. But then she caught herself, and her usual smirk returned. Hajin noticed it and couldn't tell what she was thinking. She began to speak more seriously now. "So, the whispers were true. They really did raise you to be the perfect killer. Now I understand why they asked me to intervene. There's something strange in your energy. It's not ordinary. It's from that ancient sect, isn't it?" She stepped closer, speaking with confidence. "They probably wanted you taken alive, but looking at the way you've been cutting down their men, I can tell you've mastered those secret techniques." Her eyes sparkled with ambition. "Now it all makes sense. That's why someone like you, who thrives in bloodshed, is still standing." Hajin responded calmly but firmly. "Let me guess. You want me to hand over everything I know about the ancient sect's martial arts? And the Divine Justice Alliance's secrets too?" She laughed lightly, clearly amused. "So, you're not just a weapon after all. I assume you've figured out I'm not planning to share anything I learn with Iron Blood Fort?" She confessed openly. She had no interest in their goals. What she truly craved was the knowledge he possessed. She offered a deal. Tell her what she wanted, and she'd let him live. Hajin gave a humorless laugh. "Why is everyone so full of betrayal lately?" he said. "I'm practically dead already. How is your offer supposed to help me?" Sogyo raised an eyebrow. "Is this because of the bloodworm?" Hajin's expression shifted. "The bloodworm?" she explained calmly. "The Alliance had ensured obedience by planting a parasite near his heart, a living symbol of their control. Any defiance would be punished. You were theirs the moment they brought you back from the brink," she said. But she also dangled a solution. With her deep knowledge of poisons and forbidden medicine, she claimed she could remove the parasite from his body if he gave her what she wanted. Hajin looked down, silent. Then, without meeting her eyes, he replied, "What if I agree?" Sogyo leaned in, intrigued, but Hajin's voice hardened. "The Alliance isn't chasing me just because I ran." Her expression changed. "Wait, don't tell me. You figured out how to remove it on your own?" Hajin looked her in the eye. "My title wasn't given out of kindness. I solved the mystery years ago. I just had to advance enough to pass through their trap. Back then, Hajin coughed up blood, and the parasite along with it. I trained for this, for years, and just when I thought I'd earned my freedom, here you are." Then came the question. "If I gave you what you want, would you let me live?" Sogyo didn't answer. Hajin stared at her, his voice rising. "Don't think for a second I trust your words. I've been their pawn for 30 years. I won't fall for another trap." He stepped forward, voice sharp with fury. "Move aside, or die like the rest." But Sogyo didn't budge. "You're barely alive," she said. "Don't bluff." Her aura surged, dark and suffocating. "No one's ever insulted me and lived to talk about it," she said. She realized then he wasn't going to give her anything. "Then you're worthless to me," she said coldly. "You die here." Hajin's voice cut through her rage. "Number, you're the one who dies, you bitter hag." They clashed. The explosion of force sent dust and debris flying across the clearing. For a moment, both stood motionless, but blood poured from Hajin's hands. Sogyo's poisoned nails had pierced through. true. Before he could react, a second presence struck. A blur moved behind him. The Great Elder? When did he get here? Hajin's mind reeled. It was true. The Great Elder of the Divine Justice Alliance had followed Sogyo's energy trail and arrived in time for the kill. Hajin was overwhelmed. In a devastating strike, the Elder sliced through Hajin's legs. At the same time, Sogyo severed his arms. Screams filled the clearing. Sogyo plunged her hand into his chest. Hajin collapsed, blood flooding from his wounds. The two stood above him, victorious. Hajin was on his knees, fading fast. Then Sogyo grabbed his head with both hands. "You look better like this," she said coldly, and without a moment's hesitation, she wrenched it from his body. The light in Hajin's eyes dimmed. Blood spilled. His body dropped lifeless to the ground. Yet just before his life was fully extinguished, thoughts flickered in his fading mind. Is this really the end? I just wanted to live a normal life. Just once. Even for a moment. His final wish echoed in silence. Far away, within the temple grounds of the heavenly demon cult, a thin young man lay on a bed, his body frail and weak. As Hajin's thoughts faded into darkness, the young man's eyes opened, and Hajin was reincarnated. Within the deep, guarded halls of the heavenly demon cult, a man stepped into a quiet chamber. Smoke drifted from a long pipe in the hand of a relaxed figure seated within. The man knelt down respectfully before him and greeted him with the cult's formal words of reverence. This was a young master in the heavenly demon cult. With calm detachment, the young master acknowledged the man's presence. The kneeling figure, who had been attending to the affairs, gave his report. The young master, Ryeong-seo, was unlikely to survive the night. His pulse had weakened, and his condition had deteriorated beyond recovery. The master gave only a small nod. It seemed Ryeong-seo's end would come more easily than expected. Meanwhile, deep within the young man's unconsciousness, memories surged like a storm. Hajin Cheon, once known as the feared assassin king, relived moments of his former life as if they were playing out again in front of him. In the haze of dreams, he stood among bodies, his blade freshly drawn. A voice nearby asked if he was done. Hajin answered that there was no one left. He had eliminated every last one of them. His companion, seated casually next to him, suggested they rest before continuing, and Hajin agreed, though he warned they couldn't linger long or risk being discovered by their leader. As they sat there, Hajin noticed something in the other man's hand. It was a small wooden carving shaped like a bird. Curious, Hajin asked if he had made it himself. The young man smiled softly and asked a question that cut deeper than any blade. Wasn't Hajin tired of living as an assassin? The young man declared with firm resolve that he would leave this life behind. No matter the cost, he would live the rest of his years as a free man, roaming where he pleased like a bird soaring through the open skies. He dreamed of a quiet life in the countryside, far away from blood and steel. Hajin looked at him, surprised by the conviction. For a moment, he felt that same yearning. He said he'd come too. He wanted that kind of life as well. Simple, green, and free. But his companion shook his head. "You can't," he said solemnly. "Don't even dream of it." The vision shifted. Blood covered Hajin's face. His companion was lying on the ground, mortally wounded. Hajin rushed to him, confused and horrified. A cold voice echoed nearby, accusing, mocking. They had dared to run after being saved by the Divine Justice Alliance. This was their punishment. The bloodworm implanted in their bodies was doing its job. In another flash, Hajin saw the moment of his death replayed. The queen of soaring beauty's merciless smile as she tore his head from his shoulders. He jolted awake, heart racing, breath sharp. The dream had felt too real. He whispered to himself, stunned. Was it really just a dream? It couldn't have been. He remembered dying. Clearly, vividly. But then, where was he now? The room around him was nothing like the battlefield. It was opulent, refined, far removed from the world he knew. He caught movement, someone approaching. A voice called out respectfully from behind the door, asking to enter. A woman's voice. Instinct took over. Hajin, now in the unfamiliar body of Ryeong-seo, disappeared into the shadows. When the maid entered, she was stunned to find a chopstick at her throat. The man she addressed as her young master was suddenly alert and dangerous. He demanded to know who she was, and if she was working for Iron Blood Fort. The terrified maid, clearly confused, said her name was Eng Hwa. She was his personal servant. Riang wasn't convinced. He pressed her further, asking who had brought him to this place. But she insisted no one had brought him. He had always been here. According to her, he had been unconscious for 6 months after suffering a chi backlash and had only woken up 2 days ago. Nothing made sense. Riang's voice trembled with disbelief. He ordered her to stop lying, but she looked at him with real concern, saying she was only preparing food for him. He turned to the side and caught his reflection in a mirror. The face staring back was not his own. He didn't recognize it at all. He staggered backward, overwhelmed. Was he reborn? Had he been reincarnated into someone else's body? Eng Hwa called out to him again, still using the title Young Master. He tried to steady himself. Opening the door, he stepped outside to see the grounds. Large, serene, and unfamiliar. This place felt like nothing from the martial arts world he knew. In the distance, 2 men approached. One of them glanced at him with a respectful smile, then dropped to one knee and shouted a formal greeting, honoring the cult and congratulating him on his recovery. Riang blinked, confused. Did he just say, cult? He began to piece it together. This must be the heavenly demon cult, and he had been reincarnated into the body of Ryang Seo, the young master of a demonic sect. Elsewhere within the cult's palace, a man approached another chamber, where an imposing figure sat in contemplation. The man knelt deeply and offered his respects. He introduced himself as Dam Mu, the grand guardian of the cult's defense force. He asked for an audience with the great master of the heavenly demon cult. The master responded curtly, asking what news he brought. Dam Mu reported that the young master, third prince of the cult, had awakened. The master raised a brow and asked if he meant Ryang Seo. Dam Mu confirmed, but added that due to overtraining, the boy had completely lost the ability to use martial arts. He awaited instructions. A heavy silence followed. Then the great master stirred, his aura filling the chamber with sheer pressure. He called Dam Mu by name, his voice laced with power, and ordered him not to submit any reports about the young master for the next 3 months. Dam Mu bowed low in complete obedience. The force of the master's presence left no room for questions. "I understand," he said solemnly. Then, with genuine loyalty, he added, "I hope from the depths of my heart that you will ascend to the position of Grand Master. In the heart of the heavenly demon cult, known far and wide as the 1,000-year demon cult, lay a legacy older and more feared than any other faction in the martial world. The cult's roots stretched back countless generations, and its reputation as a bastion of destruction and chaos remained unmatched. Though the Divine Justice Alliance and Ironblood Fort possessed the numbers, it was understood across the realm that these three groups were the dominant powers shaping the fate of all martial clans. But of the three, it was the heavenly demon cult that left people trembling in silence, whispered about only in fear, believed by many to be the truest embodiment of evil. Meanwhile, Ryang stood behind a door in silence, peeking through the narrow opening into the world beyond. Confusion clouded his thoughts. He had been granted another life, a second chance. Yet of all places, why here? Why in the middle of the most feared demonic cult in existence? He wanted to scream, but he held himself back. Now wasn't the time to let emotions run wild. He needed clarity, a plan. First, he had to understand this place. Then, he could decide what came next. The night before, Ryang had slipped through the cult's grounds, testing what little stealth he could muster in his fragile condition. He already knew his current body was too weak to handle the techniques he once mastered. Still, he pressed forward and overheard two cult members speaking in hushed voices. "I think we're heading for another bloodbath to decide who's on top," one man said grimly. "Quiet," the other whispered back. "You'll be punished if anyone hears you." Their conversation shifted to Ryang himself. "Can you believe he woke up after 6 months? Word is he's lost all his martial strength. If he still had it after all that, he really would deserve the nickname the Imp," the other replied. Ryang furrowed his brow. Whoever this body belonged to before, this Ryang, had left behind quite the legacy, and not in a good way. From the way they spoke, he was seen as dangerous, possibly even unhinged. Ryang shook his head. Not only had he taken over someone's life, but apparently someone notorious. Back in the present, Ryang considered his options. The cult was dangerous, no doubt, but there had to be a way out. Escape wouldn't be easy in a body so badly damaged, though. He spent an hour pushing himself with basic stealth exercises, but it left him drained. His current strength wasn't far from that of an old man. First, he needed to recover. He sat in a meditation posture, focusing his breath and centering his energy. The body's 8 internal channels were blocked and chaotic. He'd start there. He directed his focus toward his abdomen, guiding his energy through the gate of divine rain. Gradually, warmth spread through him, the room seeming to grow humid as he expelled lingering impurities from his weakened body. He remembered how, in his past life, he had refined his own unique QI technique, drawing on scattered martial styles without formal support. That style, unyielding and sharp, had become his greatest weapon. Slowly but surely, that familiar sensation returned. He opened his eyes. He had done it, his first breakthrough in this frail new form. Time passed in quiet isolation. Few visited his quarters aside from the occasional physician and his nervous maid, Hua. She rarely spoke without fear, and it had become clear the original Ryang had treated her poorly. It left Ryang with little doubt that this new identity came with more enemies than allies. 3 months went by. Elsewhere, deep within one of the cult's dark palaces, a young man exhaled smoke from a long pipe. His expression was unreadable. Across from him stood a physician who bowed respectfully and said, "I've monitored him daily, and the young master's condition is improving rapidly." The smoker tilted his head. "Strange. I thought the stronger the demonic traces, the harder it would be for him to recover." "I was certain of it," the doctor replied. "Yet the opposite seems to be happening." The smoker let out a slow breath. "Ryang, you never fail to surprise." This man was Weeman Hong, the 4th prince of the cult. He tapped the pipe thoughtfully. "When is Yoren due to return?" "Tomorrow, just before noon," the physician answered. "It's been 6 months since she left. Keep watching both of them. I want to know everything," Weeman said without looking up. Back at his residence, Ryang was now pushing his body to the limits. His fists cut through the air with power, the strength in his strikes much improved from months prior. He studied the the new cracks in the wall. They were deeper than before. Progress. His breathing was controlled, focused. He had expelled every trace of the impure and demonic energy that once plagued this body. Just then, Eng Hua appeared. "Young master, I've brought your herbal medicine." He took the bowl with a quiet, "Thank you," and raised it to his lips. Then he saw it, floating in the dark liquid. A small, writhing thing. Familiar. Too familiar. The blood worm. His eyes widened. Behind him, a voice echoed in his mind. "Did you really think you could escape us?" He froze, paralyzed by dread. The voice continued. "You owe us your life. You're nothing but the product of our work." He clutched the bowl. "No, this isn't real. You'll never escape," the voice taunted. "Not even in death." The vision faded. The worm was gone. "Are you all right, young master?" Eng Hua asked gently. He blinked. He was still in the room, still holding the bowl. "It was just an illusion," he muttered to himself. He drank the rest in silence. Eng Hua gave a small bow and excused herself. Left alone again, Ryang stared into space. He finally had the life he always wanted. But could he truly be free this time? He got dressed slowly, thinking. At the entrance, he heard voices. "Is he inside?" a woman asked. Eng Hua responded with hesitation. "Let me inform the young master first." But the woman brushed her aside. "Move." The door opened abruptly. A confident young woman stepped inside, glancing around as if she owned the place. "Long time no see," she said. Ryang stared at her, confused. Her face was unfamiliar. Before he could respond, the woman turned and slapped Eng Hua across the cheek without a word. Ryang narrowed his eyes. Whoever this woman was, one thing was clear. This visit wasn't friendly.